That was Alana Ort's Time. I sound like a radio host. Let's get started into the show. Every fortnight, Pixel Boss presents Ivan Gomez and Daniel Monge. We bring on different topics, beautiful speakers from outside of Australia. And today's topic is business development in Web3. So we've been hosting these spaces for a few months now, or more so LinkedIn audio to be more contextual to the platform. So many people have been on Twitter spaces, but this is a newer format that is quite new for people in Australia. The UK has been doing a very good job. However, it's our time to bring more light into international collaborations. And that's what this space is for. It's a collaborative space. It's a discussion. It's not more so me interviewing everybody. We'd like to have this as an open forum, thus the variety of speakers across the world. So we've got David from the US, I believe, Ashley's from the US, Mark's in Sydney, Ivan and myself, and Belinda from Melbourne, Victoria. Got John in the building. Let's start off with a few introductions. Ivan, say hello before we jump in, my friend.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. I want to derail this from the very start. Just a massive shout out. Matthew that's down here, one of the listeners, he runs a company called Project Racer Club Labs, and they've just won a community vote category at quite a meaningful event. And that means more than anything, because when you've got ground support, it's when magic happens. So I encourage everyone to give Matthew a bit of a look and a follow. They've got a pretty amazing product coming to market. But back to what we're up to today. I mean, fundamentally, we'll touch on a few topics. I'll obviously have my opinions as usual, but this is first and foremost, for the people and the guests that have joined us, and anyone that's down there listening. If you go to the three dots, you can post a question, and then if we can get to it, we will. But remember, above all, just to really start building here with us or without us, but just build. Over to you, Daniel, and let's kick it off.
With some etiquette for the audience. So when we're talking, you can throw up love hearts. Show us if you can hear me, throw up a love heart. It's the bottom right. If you press the react button, it's right next to the mute. We will be able to see and hear from you in that way. For the speakers, because it is a discussion, if Ivan has a point and you'd love to cut him off like I do, because everyone knows that Ivan will keep talking. If not, you can press the unmute button and jump into the conversation at a point, derail the conversation to an interesting topic. That's what this forum is for. It's a very open discussion. So don't feel that you're cutting anybody off. Obviously, if you cut me off, I'll be very sad, though I'll be sure to throw the conversation back to you guys. In saying that, let's go around. Let's give a minute introduction. I don't want to spend too long on intros. I know you can derail the conversation. So let's do a 1 minute intro. We'll start off with David. I'm just going by sequential order. David, then Mark, and then Renee, and I'll go from there. David, give us a bit of a background, 1 minute background in terms of what you're up to in Web3.
Up to in Web3? You know what? Actually, I've kind of sat back during this bear market and just kind of started building more than doing consulting. I've actually gotten a chance to get my hands dirty and just keeping my head low. I've got about possibly 4 to 5 projects coming out within the next 30 days to 6 months that, I'll be attached to, from founder to creative director to just advisor. Right now, proud to be a marketing advisor for Web3 Texas on their board. And just sort of, when I get a chance, chime in and give some commentary on, current topics as the space, continues to sludge its way through this market. But, yeah, absolutely. Keep an eye or give me a follow or whatnot. And you'll see some things that'll be releasing pretty soon.
You're an NS day trader, which is pretty funky. I'm keen to get on that on a personal note. Mark, what's good?
Hey folks, hope you can hear me okay. Name is Mark. I go by Captain DeFi on Twitter because we've all got alter ego kind of thing. I run the Oz DeFi Association, which started around this time last year, which is a community different people, about 1,200 in the Discord, 2,500 on Twitter that follow us, and a whole lot more on our meetup page. We're in 5 cities around Australia. We're going to be in 7 by next year. We are close to the community, close to corporates as well, and we're getting closer to government and regulators as we're getting invited in to contribute to roundtables on various things, from Treasury's token mapping exercise to the border taxation process and how they're going to tax all the different tokens that are out there. So very important to get that community view. And then by day, because I make no money from that, and actually I pour a lot of money into that, so, giving it all up to grow the community. I run a venture studio called Not Centralized, and we do a whole lot of projects where we are either advisors or we're working on our own projects, and we're also consulting in the space. And we see a lot of this space as being similar to fintech and a lot of the trading that we used to do, because we're the people that I'm with are all ex-capital markets folks. So a lot of similarities there. So we're trying to bring that bit of expertise to the conversation.
Legend as always. I'm going to throw it to Renee, then Belinda.
Hi everyone, my name is Renee. I'm the Product and Marketing Manager at Day by Day, which is a decentralized insurance platform using Web3 technology. So what we've been doing in this bear market is just building up our platform, and actually last week we launched the first major phase of our Web3 platform by launching our NFTs as insurance policies. So we've had some great uptake so far, and now we're looking ahead, ready to build phase 2.
Forward to hearing. Belinda, let's jump in.
Everyone, hope you can hear me okay. This is like the first LinkedIn audio, so I'm really excited about this. I've never done this before, but it's really cool. So quick backstory, I'm predominantly in Web 2, fell in love with it, and Web 3 is really new to me. So I've only been playing in this space for about a year. So I was crypto first, then NFT as a sole investor. And then now we are growing Xenabler as a blockchain dev house, Web3. So a lot of the projects we work on are in the metaverse. We do some NFTs. We're currently working on a project at the moment in tokenization in real estate, which is pretty cool. I know it's illegal right now, but there's obviously a long and lengthy process at the moment we're going through. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here and really excited about the Web3 space.
Please.
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. Just continuing what Belinda was saying. So similarly, I've also been focusing a lot in the last year on everything real estate and how that ties to blockchain, Web3, and crypto. My company also provides the full suite of services for tokenizing. It could be companies, it could be assets, it could be real estate. And then also that experience, how it ties into Web3, metaverses, NFTs, experiences that could be within hotels, events, new development, and then in general, I've been in the space for almost 10 years, so continuing to still focus on what I think is super important, which is on-ramp and off-ramp payment solutions. I think that that's really key in terms of mass adoption and being able to onboard your end users to your projects properly. That's the gist of it.
No, very good summary. Thank you. We'll throw it to Ashley and then John to finish off, and let's get into the conversation. Ashley.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me. This is also my first LinkedIn audio, so I'm super, super excited about this. I currently help consult Web 2 companies get into the Web 3 space from a business development standpoint and understanding what that looks like for their business, their consumer base, and our overall brand alignment, as well as helping current Web3 projects and startups with digital marketing, brand development, community building, etc. When I'm not working with clients, I am a content creator across all social media platforms. Recently went viral on TikTok. And I talk about Web3 education, Web3 news, and just breaking down different ideologies and the foundations of blockchain technology to educate and onboard more people to the space.
Throw it to John, the surprise guest. Jump in.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. Ashley, hey, kudos to you for going viral on TikTok. Not easy. Hi, folks. John Duffield, Essendon, Melbourne boy. 15 years stateside, coming in from New York, Connecticut area after 12 years in California. Lead innovation for a global creative agency out of New York City, helping guide big brands into the Web3 and metaverse space. And in addition to that, an inspirer and educator in the space. I co-founded a NFT learning community called The Forest. Strategists and entrepreneurs into the NFT space with existing projects or guidance on how to find projects. And also really big on the enterprise business angle of metaverse. Launching a course called Metaverse for Business to help brands, business owners, and brand leaders tap into the space with smart, actionable outcomes of how to be ready right now for the metaverse and what else is to come. Some huge signals in the space, with Starbucks onboarding 27 million loyalty customers into Web3 in the coming months. That's going to be a huge resurgence, I think, on smart experience loyalty plays from an NFT perspective. So certainly happy to be here.
Let's ramp off with that, John. So when we talk about the idea of business models particularly, right, we all know that the idea of the internet, when that first came out, websites first came about, there wasn't a particular model, and it was usually one-dimensional, customer-driven, if you want to say it. And now we're moving into a world where it's, okay, how do we incentivize and reward internal teams and then create distribution models amidst that? I want to throw this to John, and then let's keep this as an open discussion for all the panelists, as I don't want to be one-dimensional. I want everyone to throw in their input. And because there are so many speakers, let's try and do so accordingly. So throwing it back to John, how are you thinking about, I guess, beyond profit and scale when you're building your educational side of the business? And what does that business model look like?
Yeah, good. Great question, Daniel. I mean, I think profit and scale obviously are key, but I think groundswell interest is so important. I mean, when you think about what Web3 and NFTs provide, Andreessen Horowitz wrote a really compelling article about this. I think the marketing model has effectively been flipped upside down. I mean, no longer do we need to spend tons of media to onboard users in the beginning. We can issue tokens. We can incentivize interest, incentivize ownership, and generate like this infectious enthusiasm and loyalty towards, new and existing brands in an interesting way. And I think you said something interesting too in terms of starting internally first. One of the soft on-ramps that I've been pretty successful with in some large Fortune 100 brands in their appetite for Web3 and Metaverse is to look internally first. In terms of NFTs, I mean, how on earth can they be confident in releasing a collection if A, they haven't rallied legal, technology, and finance to be able to open a crypto wallet and purchase cryptocurrency and buy NFTs off artists and partners that resonate with their mission? And I think that's absolutely key before they even consider a collection. And in terms of metaverse, I mean, all day long we got brands coming to us and we're like, well, hold on, look internally first. What are some large annual meetings that you run typically on a flat 2D Zoom or WebEx experience that you can shift to a virtual space to provide a sense of presence and connectedness throughout the workforce. So you can get the vibes, the energy, the enthusiasm to rally around something like Metaverse before you look to provide an external customer-facing presence. So I think they're sort of the principles we look to as we start to onboard from an NFT and website and Metaverse perspective.
Let's continue this conversation in terms of internal teams and modeling, right? I mean, because we can provide frameworks, however, looking at it internally and seeing how we can incentivize. I mean, when we look at local businesses, I know the Burgatory in Melbourne, though they aren't particularly Web3, they've created a new model where I believe it's 10% of extra profit goes towards employees and staff. And it gets distributed back to the team. Throwing it to Mark, how are you seeing these business models get involved internally? And then I'll throw it to the rest of the panel as well. How are you guys looking at it with your internal?
I would say that any business that is out there, we're on LinkedIn, right? Like, it's nice to get all the vibes and stuff on Twitter, but on LinkedIn it is a bit more serious and stuff. And any business that is out there that is worth their while, they are looking at typically three things, right? That is increasing revenue, it is decreasing costs, or it's reducing risk. So that revenue, cost, and risk. And if we look at it from that framework, I guess the important thing is to understand, how does blockchain tech actually play a part in that? Like, how do we use blockchain tech for what it's good for? One of those is the transparency that it offers. Another is the automation. And secondly, it's the value transfer. And I think that's the part that plays an important role here. And if you're looking at things for how you can help customers, I think it is a great thing to actually, as John said, look at how you would do things internally. Like, you got to drink your own Kool-Aid first before you start serving it to others. So it's really important to make sure that you really understand what is the purpose of like bringing this tech to others. If it's like bringing more closeness, it's that ability to potentially reduce costs of flights because people can jump into like a metaverse type experience, thinking about those three factors of revenue, cost, and risk. Now, not every blockchain project or NFT project is going to go out there and be that, but I think you've got a safer chance of doing something if you're factoring into account what your project does in terms of utility for one of those three things. And definitely looking at things at how you would actually use it yourself, creating those customer stories and user journeys. We get easily lost in the hype around this space, and I think with the bear market, it's been good to flush out projects that we're just never going to take off the ground. But like, we've got to be realistic with where we're getting to, what is the bottom line, how can we actually make something that has utility that is going to be sustainable. Those are the things that drive us in the projects that we do. I'd be interested to hear what other people think as well. I'm just
going to jump in there. From my point of view, we talk about the bear market and it makes perfect sense why, but what leads that is basically the coins around the world. They go from 50,000 to 20,000, what have you. That's crypto. Then you've got NFTs, which have largely been PFP projects, basically, glorified JPEGs. What I love about what we're doing, and most of the people in this room, we're addressing the idea of using blockchain, the technology, the smarts of blockchain to build out traditional and new business. And that's the framework. That's the energy. But I think the biggest thing to consider when doing this is, I think you almost come at developing from opposite ends. You've got your traditional board or directors or the CMO with and the agencies, all these fancy awards on their wall, but that's top heavy. And you've got people making big decisions, and then they hand over the reins to equally experienced people, but there's a complete disconnect, and that's when it's going to implode and crash. So I really want to encourage people to be really humble in entering this Web3 space by building slowly and strong and wide, and then you've got a really strong platform to then just drag drop, whether it be membership programs, whether it be incentives, whether it be rewarding community, new ventures. The most important thing is we're going to all be able to create new revenue streams and probably overtake the ones that started us off to begin with anyway.
And I think the gamification and the incentivization is the biggest thing when we're mapping out these new models, right? It's seeing how we can think outside of the box and provide, whether it's random things like airdrops or the idea of, do we need a non-fungible token? Does it need to be? And how I distinguish that is, okay, how much identity do we need to provide to the consumer around this model or to the internal team? If it is identity driven, then it should be more non-fungible. However, the technology behind that is actually used is extremely important. Renee, how are you looking at this more recently with your drop in terms of insurance and Web3? Like, how are you guys incentivizing the community? I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So with insurance, that's a very traditional, it hasn't been disrupted for a long time, that industry. And so it's very ripe for some changes. And that's what we've found consumers' main pain point has been this lack of transparency, the lack of control over their data, things like that. And that's exactly what blockchain technology solves, as you were saying before, Ivan. So what we're able to do with smart contracts, with NFTs, with crypto is provide hyper-personalized experiences, hyper-personalized insurance that's on demand, that's more affordable, that's transparent, and more trustworthy. We've found that the education of that insurance, the current insurance industry, has been important in making people realize the value that decentralized insurance and Web3 insurance can bring.
I'd love to throw this to Belinda and Sharon, as I know you guys have both been working as consultants and in the startup world for the last almost decade. How are you seeing this new approach? Obviously, there was a Silicon Rally, run-up, which was very one-dimensional, and it was almost just get it done, make it happen with whatever means possible. And now it's almost like these startups, yes, they can launch their tokens. However, there's far more risk, because if you drive your community down to the ground by launching just a random NFT project, take the money and run, you're accountable for it. So that risk has gone up. And like Mark was saying, we have to understand how to devalue that risk. Sharon, how are you looking at this when you're consulting these new Fortune 100 companies? Jump in.
So regulation has always been something that I continuously talk about. I think something that we saw that obviously, a lot of us knew was coming, was the fact that, when this NFT craze kind of started booming and happening, everybody thought that they can just do whatever they want. Now, maybe in certain jurisdictions in the world, that's okay. But, I always say you don't mess with the eagle. And in America, you're going to get penalized for that. And at this point, they're even going back. We're starting to see, the SEC kind of go back and really target these people that have basically crossed, a certain line, and they thought that, well, if I do an NFT project, then I don't have to abide by these regulations, or I don't have to try and, protect these consumers. But at the end of the day, that's not what's happening or what's happened. I still think it's great that this happened, quickly, and we kind of got over it, and now all of, the bad guys have kind of left, and really whoever is staying and is still building are the real ones, and are really going to push this forward. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Can I just add something to that? Sorry to jump in. Free flowing conversation and all, but please, I think there is a massive myth that I think many in the Web3 space haven't gotten yet, and we're still seeing it because we still see it discussed. But the myth is that because we don't have specific crypto regulation, that we are unregulated. That is not true. We will see, whether it's the SEC or ASIC or whatever it is here in Australia and Europe, the government will use whatever current rules and regulations they are to crack down on things if they see they need to. They did it with Tornado Cash. They're currently doing it now, as Sharon is mentioning. We have regulations. It's if you are acting in a way and you're building something that is a security or it's an managing investment scheme here in Australia, which is another thing that is regulated, and you do harm to clients, just because we don't have crypto regulation doesn't mean they won't do anything. And Sharon, you make a very good point, because people need to hear this kind of stuff. And we still see the myth, and I think a lot of bubbles need to be popped, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of these, like, you know, I mean, this is really shallow to say. Maybe a lot of people are going to laugh at this, but, like, you know, the Kim Kardashian case is a classic. You know, everybody knows who she is. Everybody knows her platform. Everybody knows her user base. And she was not, you know, educated enough. And look what happened. The SEC fined her a lot of money. That's a substantial amount of money. So, I mean, I think also at the end of the day, you know, the SEC is kind of trying to, like, reap the benefits, you know, and kind of fine all of these people because they can. I mean, we're seeing this in the Ripple case as well. But yeah, it's super important that people don't just brush this off. But on the other hand, it's really hard because, you know, you have all of these quote unquote securities lawyers that all of a sudden had to become crypto lawyers. You know what I mean? It's not something that they know or understand or were part of this world. We're just dealing with securities, and these are rules that are really, really old, and they were written a really long time ago, and they may not apply to today, but still we kind of have to work through and navigate around that. But I always say, you know, if it looks like a security, if it smells like a security, if it sounds like a security, it's probably a security, and you should do your due diligence. And whether it's a security or not, even, you know, IP rights, what you know, going through that and all of the legal intricacies that you need to provide. I think that's also important, you know, for your users or your consumers, for how they can basically make use of this specific NFT. So, you know, if you look at your Bored Apes or, you know, your World of Women, what they're doing within their community, what they allow their users to do or to use in order to kind of make their communities grow. So I think you need to start first looking at things, you know, as a real business, right? Launching an NFT project is literally like launching a brand new business. Even if it's for your current business, it's still another baby of the business, and you have to treat it that way, and you have to go, you know, through the legal hurdles and the proper setup or corporate setup or proper structures. It's not just saying, hey, you know, I'm going to throw some art over here and you're going to buy it and I'm going to be rich and that's it. Great. So I think we're kind of past that stage, and I think that now we're going to be focusing more on the tech side of it. You know, how Daniel, you were saying that how it applies within the different industries or in what you know, people are doing within their businesses, and not just say, you know, NFT, Web3, and just throw that around.
I'm just going to jump in there, and I love everything you just said then, but for me, anyone building needs to have great tech people in the background, but what we're doing at Pixelboss is really diving into a language that is going to allow for mass adoption. So we're removing the NFTs, the DAO, we're removing all the things that we all love and have been learning about. But to get mass adoption, going back to a scalable business, we want to have an on-ramp, whether you're Web2 or Web3, or whether you're collecting or creating or having marginal ownership or sharing in the spoils of revenue that's being shared. I think the language is really important, and that's something that we're personally, or as a team, really focusing on. We've just hit the halfway mark. Two quick things. If people can just go on the three dots, I mean, share the room. We're halfway. We want to build these events, not just for us, but for the community. So just share away, or in the comments, if there's someone in the room that you want to connect with, or you've got a question, there's no dumb questions. If you've got an insight, share that as well. I want to continue to be that broken record to encourage how we collaborate and how we keep evolving this. Over to you, Daniel.
Yeah, even if you drop a comment and then later connect with people in the room, it'll expand your connections in Web3. So that's one good way. So if you don't know how, that's the three dots on the top right. Bringing it to the conversation that Sharon was talking about, in terms of our next topic, which is more so the project management, the release of NFTs, or the release of any Web3 project. Ashley, I'd love for you to talk on, I guess, your latest video, why it blew up, because you almost gave the business modeling for Chris Brown on that video. Why do you think that video did so well? And maybe give your insights in terms of the project and the modeling around that.
So, in regards to the actual video that went viral on TikTok was me talking about different occupations in the metaverse, and specifically a person who is acting as a video vixen or a dancer in the metaverse space. And I think one of the reasons it went viral is because it's something that people are already familiar with. So when you're trying to onboard people or even try to teach someone a new topic or a new strategy or a new concept, pairing it with something that they're already familiar with is going to make it easier for them to not only understand, but actually want to be interested. So because of people know what that is, I got tons of questions like, wait, how can you do this digitally? And I gained like 12,000 followers overnight. The video hit like over 1 million streams. I had a bunch of publications write about my content. And from that, all of my other videos like shot up in regards to views, and it had all these different people saying, well, okay, well, what is an NFT? Well, how do I access the metaverse? Like, how do I be a part of this? How do I access Web3? So I think when you take the time to meet people where they are and provide them analogies and information and show them use cases in the Web3 space that make sense to them, that's really what's going to make them want to engage in learning more about what this is. So that's why I really like to talk about different topics across my social media platforms, from projects having to do with major brands, artists, and obviously now there's not as many artists or Web2 brands putting out NFT projects because of the market. So I even take it upon myself, as my recent video I mentioned, to say, this is what I would do if I was on, Chris Brown's team, just to kind of show people and see how simple it is for you to integrate Web3 technology into what you're already doing. Because a lot of people think that they have to download some crazy software, or they have to stop everything that they're doing to get into Web3. But I really like to show people, like, no, you can continue to what you're doing, but this is just how blockchain technology can amplify what you're doing already for your consumer base.
Love that. I have a quick build. That's all right.
Of course.
Actually, I think that is absolutely fabulous advice, and congrats to you on the recent success. I think building on top of what you're already doing, leaning into what brands, organizations, products are used to, I think is absolutely key. I mean, I've found in speaking with big brands that if we lead with the shiny, if we lead with NFT, if we lead with metaverse, I mean, there's so much buzz and hype and overreacted hype on these buzzwords. I mean, we're almost at the point, we are actually at the point where we're getting eye rolls, we're getting folks tuning out. So I think it's very much, how can we build on existing behavior? How can we create soft on-ramps into the space? I love how you positioned that. I mean, I'm running presentations with brands and not even mentioning the acronym NFT or digital collectibles. I mean, I'm leaning into 21st century loyalty, reimagining brand customer relationships, things like that. And that's traction, and that opens doors. I mean, metaverse too, for example, there's so much tied up in people thinking Zuckerberg owns the metaverse. Facebook is the only metaverse. But when you come in leading in with things like, the ability to move through websites, move into web spaces, become a character, step inside a brand story instead of our typical linear brand storytelling approach. I think it opens eyes. So I just want to build on that fabulous advice on leaning into what we're already doing and building on that by saying not necessarily leading with the shiny. It helps cut through hype.
Actually, adding on to that, I know I've been using Access Pass or Access instead of NFTs because it's far easier to understand, and loyalty programs or incentivizations is another added layer I'd like to add onto that. Belinda, for yourself that's building out a development studio, how are you bridging that technical, being super technical, to also communicating it to brands in terms of development concepts when you're building out these ideas?
Yeah, by the way, I'm not a tech person.
Yeah, which is exactly why I feel that. I know Prashant is a tech guy, but you're the one
Prashant is a tech guy. Yeah, absolutely. No, really good question. But just going back, I wanted to jump into what Sharon said. Everything she was saying, I was just like, yes, 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 yes. Going back to the company side of things, like Web3, if you want to build something, whether it's an NFT or a project in tokenization or something in the metaverse, you literally need to think of it like a business. And I think I've seen, over the first 6 months of being in Web3, there were so many people launching these projects that had no real value. Like, they weren't giving back to the community whatsoever. So they were just literally launching these things and expecting to capitalize on it and not, giving back to the community or using the profit to give back to the community. And I was in these Discord channels and people were just getting rug pulled, and like, there's so many things happening. And just looking back at it and all the lessons that I've learned, a lot of these people are just, I'm going to say it, probably people won't agree with me, but were chasing the hype of being in the Web3 and the blockchain. They weren't necessarily understanding the fundamentals of a business, which is what everybody's talking about now in the Web3. And it literally is like the Web2, but so much like the Web2, but the Web3 is kind of just a hype word for blockchain. So I just want to bring it back to, if you're building something or wanting to do something in the Web3, you really need to go back to the basic stuff of starting a business, because that's literally what it is. Like, what's your value proposition? Like, what are you going to give back to the community? Why should the community be a part of your business? Why should they buy into your business? Why should they invest into your business? Why should they invest into you as a founder? So I think a lot of these things are missing in the Web3 community, if I'm honest, and it's really basic, simple stuff, which I'm totally confused of why this isn't getting spoken about in the Web3 community. But, I'm literally seeing that. And I had a company that came to me, actually a pretty big brand, a couple of weeks back. And the questions that I was asked, like, hey, B, we want to create an NFT, or we want to create something where we can give back to the community, or a loyalty program or something like that. What are your thoughts around it? We're basically, got this idea and we're going to launch it in 2 weeks. I'm like, hang on, wait, so you have the idea, but you want to launch it in 2 weeks? Like, have you built a community? Where's the community? Where are the people? And they're like, oh, we've got an audience already in the Web2. And I'm like, no. You need to build a Discord channel. You need to build a community. It's like having a business. You need to build a landing page to actually get people engaged, have people pre-sign up to your idea or product before you even go to launch. So a lot of these people are just launching things without having a community or a following. Marketing first, always. Then sales. It's not sales first and then marketing. If you haven't got an audience, just don't launch. So I guess that's my 2 cents. Thanks, Sam.
I want to jump in there. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry,
it's very important.
I think it was important what you were saying about the education of Web2, especially if they've got a Web2 audience. And that's what I found very important when, so I work at Acosta as well, which is an IT and blockchain development house. And we also provide consulting for other blockchain projects. And one of the big things we talk about is that onboarding experience, especially if your audience or part of your user base is that Web2. You want to make sure the UX design and that onboarding experience onto any app or website or platform that you're building is easy to use, explains everything, has a value proposition right there that solves a user problem. So all those things we're talking about were absolutely 100% what we think about when we're consulting these other blockchain projects too.
I think Ashley wanted to say something. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback what you said, Belinda, in regards to, making sure you have a community. Like, I have a lot of conversations with a lot of businesses very similar who don't even have communities in the Web2 space at all, like zero audience, zero socials, zero, anything, and say very similar, well, I want to drop in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and because our investors and they're relying on us and X, Y, and Z. And I have very similar questions like, well, who are you selling it to? Well, we're just going to be on Twitter Spaces, and that's not how it works. And I think it's because a lot of people are looking at these as projects and as you mentioned earlier, really don't see them as businesses, as brands. And with any product or service, most good marketers will tell you minimum 90-day rollout campaigns. That's for pre, during, and post. You need to analyze having like your brand identity, your target audience, and, all these different things. And it's just, as you mentioned, they just wanted to get in on the hype. And I think one of the very few positives of the bear market is clearly showing who was here for the hype and who's here for the long haul in regards to actually trying to build a business or a brand that's sustainable and that's actually trying to provide value and experiences to their community and not just saying it just to say that they are a part of Web3.
I also think that there was this whole thing, in terms of business development where everyone was like following this checklist, like, you have to have a Discord and then you have to have like a community manager, but then are you going to use bots or you're not going to use bots? And then you have to launch on this chain because this is what's happening right now. And then you have to do all of this and this and this. And it's like, no, that's not the right thing to do. And I remember that I had some people coming to me, to my agency, and when I would tell them that maybe this is not the direction that they should go and maybe they should, think creatively about their launch or what they're offering or, what the actual product is or what, besides a profile picture, what are they offering, their user base. And they were like, well, that's not what I heard you need to do. And if you're not on Discord and if you're not doing this, then no. And so I think that, how many people are like, be honest. When was the last time you guys checked your Discord? How active are you even there? And actually it's really refreshing because this is the first time that I've actually heard, from all of you guys on the panel that you guys are like looking at it differently, that we're looking at this and pushing it forward and really marketing it in a more innovative way and looking at the technology and being creative. So for me, this has been really, really great. And I'm glad to see that there's other like-minded people in the space. Gives me hope.
No, that's awesome. I'm just going to jump in for two very quick things. Just a quick snapshot on what we're doing at PixelBoss because just get around it. So pixelboss.io, if you go to our club section, you'll see what we're building, a physical space and educational content that we'll share with our community, whether you're a member or not. But particularly if you're in Victoria, Melbourne, strongly suggest you having a look at that. Daniel can explain to you what we're doing next week on a workshop. We're doing events and so forth. But the one thing that we're not doing publicly is announcing our agency. But anyone in the room that wants to get our agency deck, you're welcome to. I don't care if you run an agency and it inspires you or you're trying to remodel what you do and we can help you. It doesn't matter. I just really want to lead from the front with sharing, collaborating. Our whole philosophy is what can I do for you or what can you do for me? And they're not always linked. And that's the best way to build. Over to you, Daniel.
Talking on partnerships, because Ashley, Sharon, and Belinda brought up very excellent points when integrating with these brands. And you brought up a funny point. I think it was Sharon, that people entering and these brands entering the space with zero knowledge. They know nothing. And something interesting that we see brands are doing is partnering up with Web3 projects, right? If you look at World of Women and the All Blacks, which is the New Zealand rugby team, if the New Zealand rugby team ended up just going in with their own collection, they probably wouldn't have done so well. But what they're doing right now is integrating with World of Women, integrating their players with the culture of Web3. And Reddit has done something quite similar, which is launch an NFT by calling it a blockchain-backed collectible, right? Which is, it's hilarious because the community gets onboarded into NFTs without even knowing. It's genius. David, I'd love to hear from you in terms of partnerships. How are you seeing partnerships integrate within your own brands or anyone that you're consulting for as a major factor in launching?
I mean, it's not for everybody. It's definitely a smart play, a way to sort of expedite and piggyback onboarding for legitimacy purposes and authenticity. It just really just depends on what the motives are, though, because that in itself can be interpreted as disingenuous, which is, exactly what we were not trying to do, originally with Web3 integrations and trying to be, as transparent and authentic as possible. People started sort of cookie kind of what was perceived, and I think it was, who mentioned it? Was it Sharon? Basically, trying to take this perceived blueprint as what it took to, launch a successful NFT project or collection and try to replicate the cash grabs or whatnot. But, obviously the more and more that this starts becoming something that is, mainstream and outside of that 1% of the world that understands exactly what a non-fungible token is or what the blockchain is or has a MetaMask, we'll start seeing, more and more purpose, which I think is important when you're discussing things with a client or you're going to onboard as a consultant. Say, first off, let's find out what your why is. Why are you doing this? It's okay for a brand or for a company to, kind of want to put their flag on the moon before everybody else in their niche or in their industry does. So I get that. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you do it in a very, very sloppy way, it's consumers aren't as naive as many would think, and it can really backfire on your brand. You can take a big hit. I guess more pointing towards your question, I mean, you saw with BAYC how many, brands are, with the individual owners of each of those apes, they're trying to, collaborate, expand, create licensing. I think bicycle playing cards was one of the latest ones to sort of, that was a large enough brand where most people, know who they are or even, own a couple of decks of, within their home or use them. But yeah, that's as far as the future is what I see going forward with brand partnership or whatnot. You're going to want to be able to see a very streamlined, reasoning as to why it is that they're joining together. And it's very important that both sides are able to extract, I hate the word value, but I mean, there's really no way around it sometimes, to extract that value and that purpose. But there's got to be an answer to that why. Why are we doing this? And sometimes you'll find that your client's going to need help answering that question. And sometimes there is no right answer or there is no answer to that why. And I've been in a situation, I can't name with who, but where there was just no deal to be had. I had to actually walk away and say, right now an entry point just doesn't seem to make sense for you in Web3 or blockchain. It's going to look like a cash grab. It's going to look like just like some sort of validity flex or something. It'll be misconstrued, and I think it would do more damage to your brand if you were to try to do that. And from what I can tell, it looks like they've taken my advice. They haven't seen them move forward with that, and not saying there won't come a time, but timing is definitely, something to take into consideration as to the when and the why and so forth.
It goes back to the whole concept of timing, not timing in market, but timing of the market. Before you jump in, John, for anyone that has any questions, we'll spend the last 10 minutes. Anyone that would like to raise their hand, come up on stage. If you want to add to the discussion or ask a panelist a question, feel free to put up your hand now. I'll throw it to John. John, jump in.
Cheers, Daniel. Yeah, I was just going to jump on the idea of like the right time, the right space, the right moment. I think so many brands we haven't heard from yet are literally sleeping giants. I mean, there's so much that's happened in this space when you think of the explosion of NFTs when you think of the cash grabs we talked about, when you think of brands releasing NFTs, buy this NFT in order to give you an access pass to buy this next round of NFTs. I mean, what is that? That just makes no sense. I mean, I think we're in an era where we're going to see a lot more NFT giveaways from brands as the next VIP email list. I think the Web3 wallet, the NFT, is the next CRM. I think it's the next VIP email list. And I think there's so many brands. Take Starbucks, for example, that I mentioned. I mean, here in the US, they've got massive loyalty system already. And, they're not introducing NFTs. They're, positioning them as digital cards, digital journeys. And they're not requiring a Web3 wallet, for access. It's just at the same login. So I think you're going to see a lot of NFTs that come into play, not even being called as NFTs, but just natural steps in the consumer journey. I mean, it's going to be second nature to own a digital version, a digital twin of a physical object you buy moving forward. I mean, 5 years from now, it's going to be strange not to have one. So I think mainstream is inevitable. And I think it's going to come, but I think that there's a lot more that we need to do. There's a lot more we need to learn from some big players. I mean, I was at South by Southwest when Doodles, for those that know the Doodles brand, the founders were on stage saying, I mean, this is the next, we started from nothing. This is the next version of the brand customer relationship. We are here to give them IP commercial rights. We are here to serve their artistic needs. And we're not here to dictate the way the brand should go. We're here to serve the community and serve the voting aspect of what folks want to see. So, yeah, there's a lot of amazing things coming.
I'm going to spend the next few minutes, I know we're short for time, but for any of the speakers that have any questions for, I know the Australian audience, Belinda, Mark, Ivan, myself, Renee, we're in Australia, but if you have any questions for the US crew, and vice versa, back and forward, I'd love for you guys to plug in or mention anything about your project, give you guys the time and space now. Before we close up in 5 minutes, feel free to jump in. Anybody, open floor.
I was just going to ask, actually, if it's okay for the US audience folks that are here, the Aussie expats, and John and Sharon, just like what's the take up over there in terms of mainstream businesses, like real world businesses, not those that are Web3 native? How are they looking at blockchain, whether it's NFTs or other blockchain tech? Are you seeing some hesitancy like what we're seeing here in the venture studio that I work in, not centralized? We see that many businesses could benefit from blockchain tech, but just given the lack of clarity around regulation, they're kind of hesitant. So we're trying to build something that'll help clarify things. We've got something that's in the works there that we've announced in a few places and to government. But yeah, just curious as to seeing like if that's the same overseas, that people are kind of a bit hesitant because they still think it's a bit of a wild west. And how are you guys handling that?
I think it's a combo of both, and it really depends on the type of business and what they're trying to do and how they're going to utilize the technology. That's why I've kind of shifted a little bit in terms of which industries, my agency focuses on. And I think that it's kind of become a lot more clear than we thought. So in terms of, tokenizing, whether it's shares, if you're doing equity, debt, which type of asset and how you're going to structure that. You're just abiding by securities regulations. But again, I mean, I think it's shifted a little bit, right? So if we're going to look at that tokenization, like on a larger scale, it's also going to cost more. These projects, they're raising millions of dollars, but they have to put at least $100,000 to $250,000 just to get this off the ground. Again, this is like creating another business of your business. So that's something that's really important to note. And then I think on the other side of that, we're seeing in the fashion industry, everything, metaverse, more digital fashion. I think that that's something that is still going really strong, and we're seeing a lot of partnerships with the big brands. We saw, I think it was today or yesterday, a big artist launched a clothing line that, you can scan directly to see that it's real and it becomes an NFT. So we're seeing that. And then I think a lot of companies that want to give experiences, whether it's concerts, ticketing, or hotels, or, access to something to kind of be able to take this and be able to provide a more exclusive experience. That's kind of how I'm seeing it here in the US. It's 50-50, but I mean, I still think I'm in Miami, so I can tell you that, now with all our Art Basel coming up, November is like a pretty big month for everything that's happening in the space, and it's just as big as it was last year. So I think, regardless of what's going on in the market, we're still moving forward.
I'm just going to jump in. We're going to let this run over a little bit. I think there's a bit more to share. If people need to go, understand. Daniel, let you take over. I'm going to get the dog.
We've got Matt up here. We'll take a few questions whilst everyone gets up on stage. Matt, jump in, my friend. Congratulations. Jump in.
Buddy, how's it going? Man, what a lovely sharing morning this was by all the speakers there. Thank you so much, everyone there. Very, very insightful. My thoughts on mass adoption and mainstream is, I would say, when the government kicks in, okay? And when I mean government, could be government to privatization, but things like, if you think about it, e-tags, okay? Tags on the tollway. Imagine if the government changed that overnight to NFTs. That will instantly get mass adoption. Imagine if the licensing, the driver's license, part of IDs and passports and all of that come into NFTs. I mean, I think eventually it will get there. And it's going to take a while. You can see like passports today have RFID tags in them, and about 5 years ago to maybe 8 years ago, they didn't have them inside. So I just think that eventually mass adoption is imminent, like we know that, and those that are in the space today, I guess agencies and brands and all that are building towards getting mainstream in, getting clients in, and all of that, which is your bread and butter sort of work, right, and revenues. That's fine. But be mindful, I think, of these kind of things here, and use the time right now to actually survey an actual project. So that's what we're a Web2 development company, and to get into the space, we went through our own projects. We launched our own project, we built our own communities, and did all those things that you guys mentioned before. But we kind of like fell in there to try to learn behind the scenes what it is. And the reality is, a Web3 business, as what you guys are saying, it's the same as a business, right? But a Web3 business has more critical elements to it. And one of those key ones right now, and I would say in the next still 2, 3, 4, 5 years, is vulnerability with contracts, right? And the immutability of contracts. So it's in Web2, when we build a software, the software can be upgraded, can be changed, can release different versions all the time. But in Web3, when you release a software, which is the smart contract, the problem is, you can't, it's immutable. You can't change it, right? And you can patch it, but you can't change it. So, if you got vulnerability issues or inefficient issues and all of that, you have to think about it from the very, very beginning. Yeah. So a lot of recommendations we give to people is, when you get into the Web3 business, make sure you consider these things, in particular your tech. So if you think your cost is going to be as simple as setting up a website, which is what the Web2 efficiencies has received today, it's absolutely not at all. Like take that cost and multiply it by 5 times, 10 times, with your D apps, with your all these other things that you need to put in place. This is just talking from experience from being in the space for a while and building a community, right? But these are some of the things that I think, for those agencies out there considering coming in or talking to brands out there, these are some of the relevant points to consider.
Hey guys, sorry to jump in. That was great. Thank you for sharing that, Matt. I've got to jump into another meeting, guys. Unfortunately, there's the Web2 work going on, so got to do that too. Actually, this is a Web3 meeting, but anyway, thank you so much. I'll leave it to you guys.
Thanks for that. We've got Rodney up here on stage, and Guru, do you guys have any questions or additional statements, conversations?
Hi guys, I want to thank you guys for doing the panel tonight. I just wanted to add to the mass adoption comment, what's going on in the U.S. Deloitte, Accenture, McKinsey, Bain, those guys, and I've come from that world, and I still have contacts there. They're building out complete teams to cover the large medium enterprises in the U.S. You will see it under digital transformation, but it's primarily going to be around digital asset and blockchain technologies and the metaverse. So I just wanted to throw that in there. They're pretty aggressive on their investment in that area. Thanks.
Funny how you said digital transformation instead of the specific topics. When we see all these new hires, different names being used for them so they can creep in. Guru, do you want to add a final question for the panelists before we close the space?
Yep, sure. Thanks, guys. It was a really good talk. Nice to see so many same people around in this space. It's nice. So what I wanted to comment on from you guys was maybe ENS, or Ethereum Name Service. Do you guys see that being as something that's more utility driven? It was at one point at last year. It was like pretty huge. I have only 2 NFTs, and that's one of them. Do you guys see that becoming quite big, or any of their competitors?
Can I answer that?
Given that it's much more utility driven.
Yeah, jump in.
I can chime in there. So ENS is definitely, but there's plenty of them, right? So it's like, the Web2 startup time when you got .com, .cos, et cetera, et cetera. ENS, I would say, will be similar to that extreme of web domains, or in this case, blockchain domains. But definitely in the future, there'll be lots of value in it. Like you can see some of the big ones that are being sold right now. They're fetching ridiculous amounts of dollars, and they'll keep going up and up and up, right? And then you cross-section it off to what's happening in the Web2 world. So I think NFT.com got sold for 40 million or 50 million or something ridiculous like that. And then it got resold again a few months later for about 80 million or something like that. It's just crazy, right? So ENS is similar to your Web2, your domain name. And that's what will happen down the track as the whole market extends further. So that's what you got to look out for.
Matt,
I would add to the ENS thing real quick, because I think it exploded as the new kind of Web3 domain, especially when they issued, tokens. What is it, in November? When they issued tokens to the first, round of folks that jumped in. But I think it's a sleeping giant as well. We don't know what they're kind of doing next. I mean, aside from a very, very simple wallet address to send and receive crypto, I think until mainstream browsers that can render those domains, I think it's going to take a while for those to become mainstream. But yeah, it's kind of frustrating, to be honest, because so many things are happening around those domains and they just don't render in your average browser. So as soon as that happens, I think it's going to be a lot more is going to come to the fray there.
Mate, I'll jump in. Guys, we're going to have to wrap it up, but look, we could go for a lot longer, obviously. There's a few things that we didn't even touch on, but we don't run with an agenda schedule. We just let it flow. So more importantly, thank you for everyone for joining us. And again, just look forward to building with you, with or without you, just build. And we've got our next one in a fortnight, so we do these fortnightly. I'll let Daniel wrap it up, and yeah, much love to everyone, and have a great day or night wherever you may be.
Legends. Thanks everyone for tuning, everyone overseas from the States and our Aussie family, as well as I think Guru outside and a few new faces. We host these every fortnight. If you'd like to speak, contribute in any fashion, any questions, my DMs are always open. So feel free to shoot and connect with these awesome speakers, legends. Thank you, everyone, and have an amazing day.
Thanks, friends. Take care.
Guys.